Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Echo Worm Live. This is a bi-weekly live stream that we try to do every other Thursday around about that 4 o'clock, 4:30 Eastern time slot. Today obviously being 4 o'clock if you're with us live. The way that we typically do these is for about an hour and a half, I go through a bunch of questions that you guys have asked on the channel or on Discord or over on Patreon, as well as some stuff in the live chat. If you guys are here in the live chat, feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'll try to read as many as I can. And then, of course, if you're watching this after the fact and don't have access to the live chat, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down below the video, and we will try to get to your question the next time we do a live stream, which, looking at the calendar, will probably be January 15th. I will let you guys know if that changes. Like I said, typically we do them on Thursdays. Today, of course, is Friday, but because of the holiday, that is where things are set up. Happy New Year, everybody. If you celebrate New Year where you guys are, the only exceptions I think would be East Asia and maybe Southeast Asia as well. But wherever you're listening to, I always love knowing the demographics of the channel. If that's something you're willing to share in the chat, feel free to do so. Just let me know where in the world you guys are listening from. Could be as broad as the continent you live on. Could be as, never mind, I won't go in the opposite direction because I want to keep your guys' privacy safe. Give me 1 second here. I forgot to open up my live chat control panel. And I just want to make sure that we have a healthy stream today. So, with that being said, I am going to go through here and check out the live chat. Xpogo Sam is asking, having given up on the Percy Jackson TV series, not even by the 3rd episode of Season 1, what kept you watching through Season 1? What are your gripes with Season 2? And I'm going to hold off on that question for now because we will be talking about the Percy Jackson TV show later on in the stream, and I kind of want to bundle it all together. Welcome Within My Dream says hi. Disciples 4 says hi. How are you? I am doing okay. My throat is a little sore, but if you look behind me, my fish tank is almost complete in terms of having what I want in it. It's getting a little crowded. I already had some clownfish in there, and maybe you guys can't see with the size of the resolution on your screen. But I did this week add a green chromis as well as a cleaner shrimp and a blue tang. So the blue tang I literally just added today, and she's very dramatic. So occasionally you might see her pop up behind me. That's like the dory fish, you know? And she has a habit of playing dead. So she'll swim around and then she'll like drop dead in the sand. And then she'll get up and swim around somewhere, and that's normal. So if you see that, don't be freaked out by it. I don't have a dead blue tang. She's just being dramatic. So yes, the fish tank is up and going. So I'm doing well. I just, like I said, I have a sore throat. Another person asking about the Percy Jackson TV show. Like I said, we'll talk about that a little later on. Kitty is asking what happened to the stream. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. It doesn't look like I've dropped any frames. So if something is going wrong, let me know. I will try to fix it if there are issues. Yasin Yafi says, how could YouTube have hidden this from me for 4 minutes? I have no idea. I tried to advertise it as much as I could on all of the different channels. The only exception maybe being the Harry Potter and Maze Runner channels. But I did try to promote this as much in advance as I could because I wanted as many people in this stream as possible. Looks like we're doing well. Oh, Kitty just says it had to restart on my end. That's okay. Welcome. Like I said, if you're willing to share where in the world you guys are listening from, I always like knowing. My comments have been filled recently with a lot of Nordic fans, which is awesome. I just posted a reading of Luke 2, the Christmas story, in Norwegian on this channel. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, if that's something you're interested in, I am obviously an American, but I have Norwegian ancestry and am very, very passionate about Norwegian culture and Norwegian American culture. And I finally finished a project that I've been working on for 2 years where I read the Christmas story in Norwegian. And you guys are more than welcome to critique my pronunciation and my way that I speak in Norwegian. But like I said, that was a really fun, just family project that I worked on that is now available to you for Christmas and now New Year's. Let's go to a question from Sarcastic King Dude who asks, are you going to do Wings of Fire soon? Yes, the Dragonet Prophecy, I am through like the first 4 or 5 chapters of it. So it's coming along very slowly, but we will get through it eventually. That's kind of my quick answer for everything is, are you going to read this? Are you going to read that? The answer is typically, I am working on it, but I'm also working on 15 other books at the same time, so please give me time. I typically do about 2 full books per month. So right now, I just got done with Children of Dune, and I also just finished Allegiant. I got to remember if that's the order we're in. Yeah, Allegiant, the final book in the Divergent series, as well as now working on finishing up book 2 of the Missing series by Margaret Peterson Haddix. That's called Scent. Did I do anything about the drill? I don't know if I know what you're talking about. Feel free to clarify that question, because I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. Disciples 4 says, I think I'd love to be a Boreas kid. I love winter, so to have a winter deity in Greek mythology is amazing. Yeah, if you're into winter stuff, I think that's an appropriate answer. Chione was my favorite character in those scenes. I liked Chione a lot. Oh, the drill. Okay, yeah, so 3 weeks ago I did another live stream. Yes, I did get refunded slightly. I put up a stink and they discounted me the room. I was at a hotel room in Winnipeg the last time I did a live stream, and it was really, really loud. There was some construction going on that they hadn't warned me about, and I complained enough to the point where they gave me a bit of a discount, which was nice. Major Fangirl is asking, you have a lot of stuff that's not in the book. What do you mean by that? I do that as a kind of a watermark. You'd be surprised how many people re-upload my own videos and then don't give me credit for it. And so to protect against that and be able to find it a lot easier, I put little watermarks in all of my audiobooks. I also get bored, so that's me. Al Pals is asking, that's what who said? I believe the answer is she. Xpogo Sam asking a radiation effect question. This is my own personal book if you guys have never read it. Hopefully there won't be any spoilers in the question or the answer. Margot and Andrew have a pretty solid relationship, but when Andrew talked to Riley about Margot, he'd said he'd kill Margot if he'd got near Riley. Who is lying to who? It's a really good question, and I want to say you'll probably see that come to a head later on. Because you're right, as far as we know, in the first book, and then even like chapter 4 of the second book, the relationship between Andrew and Margot seems like a solid one. And the question isn't necessarily who's lying, it's who knows what about who knows what. Does that make any sense? There's a really complicated series of who knows things about everybody else and who is unaware of those other people knowing. And I think that is the more pressing answer to the question you're asking, because I don't want to spoil anything yet, because we haven't revealed anything about the relationship necessarily, but there's some hints in that with where we're at right now. How do you feel about Maresca's firing? Oh gosh. Okay, yeah, so Chelsea Football Club became the first European football club in 2026 to fire their manager 6 months after winning the World Championship. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I get it. I understand why there's necessity to move on from him, but I really don't agree with the timing of it. Message retracted. Yasin Yafi says, watching your stream from Baltimore. Well, I was going to make a Ravens joke, but I decided against it. So, good luck tomorrow. That's all I can say. Alexis is asking, will you be posting the final 2 chapters of Wrath of the Triple Goddess? Yes, I actually didn't realize I hadn't. So I'm glad you said that. If you ever find one of the books on the channel that is missing chapters, let me know, because that is either a misupload or they're stuck in drafts for some reason and I need to fix that, or I just totally forgot that there are more chapters in this book. So yes, the final 2 chapters of Wrath of the Triple Goddess should be up tonight. I promise. Disciples 4 says, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is my favorite book of Harry Potter. It's up there for me. If you guys want to know my rankings of every Harry Potter book, I did just post a video. If you look up Here's the Deal, it's a channel of mine. The easiest way to find it is by looking up Here's the Deal Black Mirror. You should be able to find my Harry Potter rankings video. I also posted it in the posts on all of the channels. So you guys can check that out if you're curious what my rankings are. Expogo Sam says, I think the order of Garen's knowing things about things would be Bill, Riley, Margot, Andrew, Emma, Wendy. I think that's fair. I don't necessarily know how you would rate the order of knowing things, because I think there's more things to know and not know than you realize or are taking into consideration. So for the major thing, yes, I might tend to agree with you. I'm not going to say you're right, because there may be a slight discrepancy in that ranking. And you address that in the follow-up. Margot and Riley might be interchangeable. Wendy and Emma might be too. I'm not going to say you're right, but you're onto something. Yasin Yafi asks, what's your favorite NFL team? I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. It's not for anything, but I'm curious to see if who plays quarterback for us tomorrow. Very curious. Bumble says, you have a face. I do. This is my face. I'm a real person. Nice to meet you. That one guy is asking, what order should I watch The Trials of Apollo? Well, hopefully you're not just watching. Hopefully you're reading along with them. But the order of The Trials of Apollo are the order that they were written in and published in. So Hidden Oracle is the first one. Dark Prophecy is the second one. Burning Maze is the third one. Tyrant's Tomb is the fourth one. And the fifth one is called The Tower of Nero. Disciples 4 says, you should try Welcome to Derry. It is amazing TV. I've heard that. I've heard very good things about Welcome to Derry. I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, but I did like the It adaptations that came out within the last 10 years. So I will definitely have to check it out. I've heard very positive things. Reader Divine Rivals says, are you enjoying the Divergent book series? Yes, I'm finished with it. Actually, well, there's 2 books that I haven't read on the channel. Those being the follow-up kind of rewrite. It's called 4. It's basically the series through 4's eyes. And then there's a follow-up novella called We Can Be Mended, I believe. So there's 5 books, but there's really only 3 books. I've done all like the original trilogy. Expogo Sam says, current favorite aspect of Homeland Security, the second book in the Radiation Effects series, is how much everyone hates Emma. It's very cathartic. I'll defend Emma. I'll continue to defend Emma because Emma is one of my favorite characters that I've ever written. I think it's less about everybody hating Emma and more Emma is both going through something and allowing it to define her relationships with other people in a way that is very unhealthy and very, I shouldn't say stereotypically like teenage girl, but she is taking all of the worst things about being a teenager and just like letting them out all at the same time. And everyone is sick of it. And so I think that is really what's going on with Emma at the moment. Romay Taparia says, can you please do Court of the Dead? I have already done Court of the Dead. Let me know if that one is missing chapters too, but you should be able to find it on the channel. Sorrow is asking, did you reread your audiobooks? I can't find your original videos. The full versions are available on Patreon and Vimeo. They are available for free if you're looking for them and can't pay a Patreon subscription fee. That's totally fine. Like I said, they are free. Just follow the links below. Like I said, Patreon or Vimeo. Freedom Eiley says, can you do the Jurassic Park books? It's been asked before, and they're on my list, but I am nowhere near starting them, so I don't have a date on those. My list is fairly extensive at the moment. Christian Askren asks, or says, you should look into the Eye of Mind series by James Dashner. I want to say other series by James Dashner have been requested before. I've never read any of his work beyond the Maze Runner series. So we'll see if that's something I am willing to do or that there's an interest in over on the channel once I'm done with the Maze Runner. Gage Flores says, can you please do more Aragon and Artemis Fowl when you have the chance? Yes, I'm currently working on Inheritance. It is the final of the 4 books in the original Inheritance Cycle series. Of course, then Murtagh comes afterwards. But with Artemis Fowl, I'm currently working on the 3rd book, the Eternity Code, I believe it's called. I have no timeline for when that's going to be out, but I'm through 3 chapters of it. Brooklyn asks, can you please do the Blood of Hercules? This has been requested a few times. I don't have any plans to do it anytime soon, but eventually, if I'm feeling the drive to do more Greek mythology, then maybe I will get back into it with Blood of Hercules. Obviously, I've done all of the Rick Riordan books, so if I feel the itch again, then I will probably do Blood of Hercules. Disciples 4 says, when is Mortal Instruments coming out? I don't know that. It might be a while. I have some other projects in the work at the moment. Xpogo Sam says, semi-spoiler question for Chapter 10, which just came out on Patreon today. Really curious how the Bill, Siobhan, Riley relationship will pan out. Interesting to see Bill being truthful about his kindness to Siobhan, while she believes that he hates Riley. Yes. It was an interesting interaction to write, because what we have to deal with is, and this is going to be a little bit of spoiler for the first part of Homeland Security, for those of you that haven't read it yet. Bill and Riley basically are hiding something from everybody. And at the moment, the readers don't know what that is. And they have a positive relationship that everybody else, for whatever reason that we don't know yet, is not allowed to see. They have to make the world believe that they hate each other. And part of that includes Riley's girlfriend, Siobhan. And so Siobhan truly believes that Riley hates his father and his father hates Riley. But when she meets Bill, his father, for the first time, there's this weird interaction where he's being kind to her. And she's not sure why, and she doesn't know how to address it. And so she tries to walk this line, and she even says it herself, he's a politician, so she feels like he's working him in a way that she's not really sure the motivations behind, but she's really, really confused as to why he's being kind to her. So we'll see that play out later on as we go on in the series here. Bill's being truthful about his kindness, but sort of avoiding the elephant in the room, that being Riley, in a way that makes it much more obvious. Yes. And I don't want to spoil anything, but my follow-up question to that would be, do you think he's doing that on purpose? Welcome Within My Dream is asking, are you still recording music? At the moment, I don't have any active projects in the works. Me and my band have been talking about possibly recording an album this summer, but I'm also having a second kid this summer. So the time I will have available to do that, in addition to this, in addition to finishing my books, is not looking hot. So we're probably going to plan for a 2027 album. Our last one came out in 2022. So yeah, it'll be 5 years. Wow. Yeah, that's a bit of a gap. But you guys can find my music. There might be a link to it below. Otherwise, look up Poseidon by Pandora's Asylum. Poseidon by Pando, and you should be able to find all of our music on Spotify or Amazon Music. Xpogo Sam says, Chapter 10 onward question. How many Ocean's 11 references can you fit into the next mission? I'll probably have to watch Ocean's 11 again. It's been a while since I've seen the original movie. I think the last one I saw was probably the Ocean's 8 movie that came out, I don't know how many years ago. Yasin Yafi says, wish I could have stayed in the stream a bit longer, but I do have to go. I might be back later, or I might not be back until the next stream. Well, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Dylan's Destroys says, are you a Chelsea fan? Yes. I always say, if I had to pick a favorite English club, Wycombe Wanderers is probably my first, but obviously I don't play in the Premier League, so if I cheer for a Premier League team, then it's typically going to be Chelsea. Disciples 4 asking, would you have Celestial Bronze or Imperial Gold weapons or Bone Steel? Oh, I think for the look of things, I would probably choose Imperial Gold. I think it looks cleaner and looks nicer. But I've always said I prefer the Greek stuff to the Roman stuff in the Percy Jackson series. Dylan's Destroys says, W, we're going to cook under Liam Rossignol. Yeah. Has that been confirmed yet? I know that's the rumor. I've also heard Oliver Glasner, and I've also heard Adonai Ariola. So we'll see. We'll see who they end up going with. I think of those options, I would prefer Liam. But if they were to pick somebody completely random, I would easily take an Italian manager over anyone in England at the moment. Red Neptune asks a question that I don't know if I can answer, honestly. How many active books are you currently working on? The easy answer to the question, and the question that you're probably not asking, is how many books am I writing at the moment? The answer is 2. How many active books am I working on as audiobooks? At least 30. So looking in front of me right now, the current series that I'm working on are The Inheritance Cycle, which is the Aragon series. I'm still working on Rick Riordan's kind of tangential side books. The Missing series by Margaret Peterson Haddix, Series of Unfortunate Events, House of Cards, Dune, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Wings of Fire was mentioned earlier. I gotta look around here, sorry. Game of Thrones, Twilight, Maze Runner. There's plenty more that I just am spacing out on at the moment. I still have to finish the 2 additional Divergent books. But yeah, I would say at least 30. So I'm doing my best. I'm very busy at the moment, so I do appreciate your guys' patience. Expo Sam says, why would Riley keep the truth from Siobhan when she's so clearly reasonable and level-headed? At the very least, clarify to her that he and Bill get along well. She can handle that on its own. No? I'm tempted to answer that question, but I am cautious that my answer will be a bit of a spoiler. I think it's less about Siobhan and more about having control of the situation that they're trying to cover. And I think with that is where I will leave that question, because I don't want to spoil anything major coming up in the book or the rest of the series. Not yet. 90% Rosneur, Glasner, and Ariel ruled out. Okay, interesting. Charlotte Chan asking, what equipment do you use to record? I could not tell you the name of my camera. It is a... Hold on, I'm going to cover it up real quick because I can't, through the light, see. It is a Logitech, but I couldn't tell you the exact model. If it's not super expensive, it's maybe $100 or $2. The microphone is the important part because I don't live record myself doing any of my audiobooks. The microphone that I use is cheaper than the one I started with. This is an Audio-Technica AT2020. And this specifically, I don't know if you guys can see it with the lighting, this is a USB. So what I'm able to do with this is go directly into my computer, and then I record it through a program called OBS, Online Broadcasting Services or Online Broadcasting System. OBS is typically used as a streaming service, which is what is being streamed right now, but you can also use it as a recording software. I know people who use like Logic Pro or Audacity to record audio. I just find it easier to do everything through OBS. It's what I use in my regular job. It's what I use for podcasting. But the microphone, I actually, for my regular job, what I typically use is this, but the modern version. So like I said, this is the AT2020 USB. For my real job, I use an AT2024, but the XLR version, which is a microphone cable. And then you have to, in order to get a microphone into a computer system, you have to have a what's called an audio box or an audio processor. I do have a couple of those because I do record music, and that's how I started recording on the channel. But I actually like this a lot better. It's a lot easier to transport. I can take this with me wherever I go. And I want to say this was about $200 to $300 too. So Audio-Technica AT2020, like I said, there's modern versions of it. You could probably find the 2024, the 2025, also with the USB input. And then, like I said, the recording software that I use is called OBS. A question from Pogo Sam, who says, I see. Looping Siobhan in adds another level of complexity. But again, the variance is going to be such a red flag for her, she's going to figure it out inevitably. You'd think that, wouldn't you? No, yeah, you're probably right. I'm not going to spoil anything, though. Disciples Forest says, Stygian iron is only for demigod, link to understand, or any demigod can use that magic metal, because if other demigods can use it, then the monsters would be more easily to kill them. Yes. Yeah, I believe that's the canon response. Will Pompeo asks, what happened to your Magnus Chase readings? Nothing. The full versions are still available on Patreon and Vimeo. The full versions should be up now. I think we're done, aren't we? We might have a few more days left, like maybe 3 days left of Magnus Chase on YouTube, but we're almost done. We're almost done, and I just lost a bit of the stream there, sorry. Hopefully that didn't cut out too much. Xpogo Sam says, these live streams are just me trying to bait you into spoilers. Yeah, sometimes you get away with it. I do my best not to let you, though. Yasin Yaffe says, before I go, on Patreon I used to be able to see the Eric Schwabington books for free, but now I can't. I will try to fix that. You should be able to find them for free. So I'll try to fix that this evening. You should be able to get through the first 7 or 8 chapters. I almost said the magic 2 numbers. I'm not going to say that on stream. I'm sorry. I've said it enough during audiobooks. But yes, I will try to fix that. If there's any other properties that you guys find on Patreon that aren't available for free but should be, let me know, and I will try to fix them as soon as I can. British Percy Pig asks, what chapter is the Cupid thing in House of Hades? This has been asked before, and I should probably find it so that I know when it's asked again on stream. This is referring to the, we'll call it the will scene, if you guys are familiar with Stranger Things. We'll call it the will scene that happens in Percy Jackson. I believe that's in the 40s. It's one of Jason's chapters in the middle of House of Hades. I want to say it's like 41 or 42, but I could be wrong off the top of my head. I don't honestly know. How are my fish doing? Oh, you can kind of see her swimming around. I don't know if you can see this. There's a big blue shape like right here. And that is my blue tang. Her name is Doris because I thought calling her Dory would be a little too on the nose. But my son is 2 and refers to the clownfish as Nemo fish and the blue tang as a Dory fish. So, yeah. We have about 8 in there at the moment, if you guys are into fish. I've actually thought about posting fish stuff on one of my other channels. So if you're ever interested in that, let me know. I have not become an expert by any means, but I'm fairly passionate about it. We've been talking about this for months. What is in your second tank? Good question. Right now I'm using that as a quarantine tank, but I have not actually had to use it yet, and this is the first time that I have bought a heater that is big enough to heat the whole tank. So now that it's able to be used, I will eventually use it as a quarantine tank, but right now there's nothing in it except plants. Xpogo Sam says, if we're on Stranger Things, I haven't dived into the new season and don't know if I will yet. Do you have a season ranking? Yes, I do. I will not say that season 5, in my opinion, was bad necessarily. I just, compared to season 4, and with the issues that season 4 had, I think season 4 was a very, very well done season. It felt very cohesive. It felt very well thought out. Season 5 is not that, in my perspective. I don't think it was a bad finale. I don't think it was a bad season. I just thought there were issues with it that, you know, if I were in charge of Stranger Things, like I would have done a little differently. I don't think it was bad by any means. I'm tempted to put it at the bottom, but I think seasons 2, 3, and 5 all kind of sit in that like low B, high C tier, and then season 4 sits in like that really high A tier, and then season 1 is one of the best seasons of television ever. So I would, currently having just come out of season 5, I would go, my personal rankings, I would go 2, 5, 3, 4, 1. And like I said, that is subject to change. That is just like off the top of my head how I'm feeling about the series at the moment. Yes, Nyafi says, I strangely just forgot what the next 2 members are after 5. Do you mind reminding me, please? I think you're asking about the membership tiers. Yeah, so on Patreon, the $5 tier gets you access to every audiobook in advance of the channel. The $7 tier or the $8 tier is the Secret Content Club. So that's where you get access to the Google Drive, where I have downloadable versions of all of my audiobooks. Not all of them, but most of them. And then I think the $10 tier, maybe, it might be 15. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. That's the tier where you get your name in the credits. So this thing right here. These are my like $10 or $15 a month or more. The Champion tier, which is now called the Book Club, is where if you give $35 a month, I send you a free book. So if you have the financial capability to do so and want to support the channel like that, for no extra cost than that $35 a month, I send you a free book of whatever we're covering on the channel. So you're more than welcome to join that tier as well. That is patreon.com/EchoWorm, worm as always spelled with an I. Expo with Sam says, also rewatched the last 4 Harry Potter movies. Really solidified my love for book 6. I just started re-listening to your audio of it. I mentioned earlier in the stream, I just released a full ranking video on my other channel of all of the Harry Potter properties. So like all the Fantastic Beasts films, the play, all of the books, all the films, in like an order. And I put I put film 6 fairly low, but I mentioned the caveat that it is my personal favorite film. Like I love the 6th film, even though I know it's not very good. But yes. What the next 2 numbers are after 5. I'm confused by that question. If you want to clarify that, Yasin Yafi. Let's go to a question from El Barto, who says, do you think you're going to continue with a series of unfortunate events? Yes, I mentioned that earlier. After I'm done with Scent, which is the 2nd book in the Missing series by Margaret Peterson Haddix, I will be releasing book 4 of a series of unfortunate events that is called The Miserable Mill. Let's see here. Welcome Within My Dreams says, the final Magnus chase was super difficult to finish. Eminem's Antichrist from The Death of Slim Shady kept playing in my head. I'm trying to think how I feel about Magnus Chase. I think I agree. I didn't like Magnus Chase nearly as much as I wanted to. And part of that might be my connection to Norway. I was a little bothered by how little care there was for, like, for example, not just the pronunciation guide in the backs of the books. I've talked about that before. The pronunciation guides in the backs of the Magnus Chase books are completely wrong if you know any Scandinavian language. But there are little, like, Rick Riordan jokes throughout where, like, he rhymes things, or he tries to make jokes out of things as, like, homonyms or homophones or whatever, that only work if you don't know how to speak Norwegian or Swedish or Icelandic or anything like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, he'll make a pun, but if you actually know how to pronounce the words that are in the book, it doesn't make any sense. And so I was a little bothered by that as a Norwegian, because it felt like, obviously this is the last of the series that he has written in terms of when he started them. It felt like he didn't care that much anymore. And I was a little bothered by that. I didn't hate the Magnus Chase series by any means. I thought it was better than something like Trials of Apollo, but I think there was a lack of care put into the books that really showed itself. And I understand why you would say that about the 3rd book, especially. Benjamin Cranny Whitehead says, can you do the Darren Shan Vampire series or Cherub by Robert Mushamore? Both of them have been requested before, I believe. Darren Shan especially is a name that has popped up a lot on Patreon. I'll have to check them out. I want to say they're on my list, but I have not started them by any means, and I'm not familiar with the Cherub series, or the book Cherub. Obviously, you know better than I do. I'm going to go back to the start of the stream in terms of a question that I think a lot of people want me to answer. And I want to preface it by saying that this is my opinion. I have studied a lot of media, and I also know these books very well. And so I have thought about my answers a lot, and I have like objectifiable measures for why I have the opinions that I have. That being said, it is still an opinion. And if it bothers you, that is totally okay. Art is like that. And I want you guys to still be able to listen to my audiobooks and connect with this series in a way that my opinions should not bother you away from. But the question is, what did I think of the Percy Jackson TV show? How am I liking season 2? And I believe that the answer that I'm about to give is not going to be the same as some people. And so if that is you, I would recommend that if you get offended by different opinions, that you maybe tune off for about 5 minutes. I'm just going to air some grievances that I have. The first question was, having given up on the Percy Jackson TV series, not even by the 3rd episode of season 1, what kept you watching through season 1, and what are your gripes with season 2? The easy answer to the first of those questions is I keep watching for 2 reasons. One, given my channel and my platform, I feel like it's my responsibility to have opinions on it and to continue to follow up with the series, because I was labeled on Reddit at one point the voice of Percy Jackson. And I think that it would be irresponsible of me to continue doing these live streams if I were not to be in the know about what's going on in the greater Percy Jackson fandom. I also just have the hope that it'll get better. And the hope that, when season 3 comes along and season 4 comes along, which we know we're getting a season 3, these are things that have never been adapted before. And I would like to see things either get better or just be able to see things that I've never seen on screen before. I've made it clear before that Sea of Monsters is probably my least favorite Percy Jackson book. And so going into this season, I was not looking forward to it from that perspective. I also had a lot of issues with season 1 in terms of the characters, the acting choices, the directing choices, the storyline and changes that they made from the book to screen. And I knew that in season 2, those issues were almost certainly going to get worse. And I think, halfway through the season now, I can safely say that those worries that I had for season 2 have come to fruition. There are a few that I really want to note, and I want to be careful with the way that I address these things. Because I think that in an irresponsible way, they can come off as insensitive. And the first thing being that the characters that I'm watching on screen are not the characters that I'm reading in the book. And there are in the last episode, for example, as of me recording this, that is episode 5, the Circe episode and the Sirens episode. There are 3 characters in that episode that really stand out as being drastically different. 2 characters, one of which is not on screen. Those being Annabeth, Tyson, and Circe. And I'll start with Circe because we only see her in 1 episode. And this wraps into a greater issue of they are condensing the story in a way that requires them to change the pacing of the book into the TV show. And the way that they're doing it compresses the story. It changes some of the best aspects of the book, and it also changes the characters. When we see Circe in episode 5, nothing about her is a secret. And nothing about her matches what it does in the book. For example, we very obviously see male counterparts on the island. There are men on the island. We don't see that in the book. It is literally an island full of women. And then Percy disappears. We still get the Percy disappearing aspect, but it is not a secret necessarily. we never guess who Cece is. She outright says, "I'm Cersei, and it's not a secret." I think her actual quote is, "I'm not hiding it," or "I'm not hiding anything." That's frustrating to me, because one of the biggest issues that I have with the series as a whole is that it is written for people who have already read the books. And it takes away all of the tension and the mystery behind the books. And so it expects us to already know or already feel the mystery and mystique from the books. And so it either subverts it in the TV show, or it doesn't give us any tension at all. I mentioned it with episode 1. We never get the reveal that Tyson is a Cyclops. Tyson is introduced to us as a Cyclops. So that's my issue with Cersei. My issue with Tyson, and like I said, he's not in this episode, because the only surprise they're going to give us this season is that he's still alive, which is a surprise from the book. Like, he explodes, we think he's dead, and then he comes back at the end, he's still alive. That is the only surprise that they're letting us keep for this season. Tyson is very different than his book counterpart. I understand why, but it is still frustrating. Tyson in the books is a stand-in for a character with mental disabilities, or lower mental faculties, for lack of a better term. I'm really trying to be careful with the way that I word these things. They literally use the R word in the book to describe Tyson. And that is the character that we're introduced to. And Percy, from the beginning of the book, sees him as a hindrance, as an extra responsibility. That is completely changed in the TV show. And it was changed in the film, too. This isn't just a TV show issue. The issue with it comes from the fact that, and someone actually on the channel mentioned this, and I can't remember who said it on the channel, but I do want to give credit to a comment that I saw when I was asking for other people's opinions on it. Tyson in the TV show lacks the innocence and joy that the character from the book has. Tyson is not the lovable character from the books in the TV show. Tyson is just a Cyclops. Like, we don't know anything about Tyson beyond he's Percy's friend and he likes tinkering with things. All of the joy and the mystery and the wonder that we have from Tyson in the books is missing in the TV show. And my other issue character-wise is with Annabeth. And we're not talking about the casting at all here. This has nothing to do with the casting. This has entirely to do with the way that she's written, and specifically the way that she's written in episode 5. And the reason that I bring up that in episode 5 is because they changed my personal favorite scene in that book. My favorite Annabeth scene in the entire series is the siren scene. And in the book, what we get with Annabeth is her hubris, which is changed in the show. Her hubris in the books is not the pride. It is the desire to be wanted and the desire to know that she's wanted. And we kind of see that in the TV show, but her driving force to see the sirens isn't to get away from Cersei. They changed that. They combine the two together, and in order to escape Cersei, you have to get past the sirens. That is not the case in the books. In the books, they have to pass the sirens elsewhere, and Annabeth personally chooses to witness them. She wants to know what the song sounds like, and she wants to face them face to face to see if she can. That is where her pride comes in. It is completely changed in the TV show. It also changes what she sees. What she sees with the sirens, and this is a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the TV show yet, in the show is a conversation between Percy, Grover, and Luke. That never appears in the books, that never really appears elsewhere in the TV show, and she confronts it and then has to face her mother, and then she's saved by Percy. That is not at all what happens in the books. The books is a really, really impactful scene where she sees herself trying to be a part of this family with her father and her father's new family. We have yet to meet her father in the TV show. He has been cast for season 3. But the interesting dynamic in the book that I think is never talked about is the fact that Annabeth's otherness from her family comes from her race. We never talk about that. And I think it's a really, really interesting thing about her that, given the fact that they swapped the character's race in the TV show, should be touched on. That Annabeth feels ostracized from her mortal family because her brothers are Asian. Like, she doesn't belong to her family because she looks different from her family. So if you made Annabeth's stepmom in the TV show white and made her siblings look different from her, you would somewhat save that dynamic. And that is completely missing from the TV show. And it's one of my favorite scenes in the book because Annabeth has to confront this thing about herself, that she will never look like a part of her family. She will never feel like she's a part of her family. And they took that away completely. And so I'm very frustrated because it's becoming apparent that the TV show is not made for a fan like me. And I've been called a book purist. I've been called a lot of things because of my opinions on the TV show. And it's less to do with the fact that I don't like the TV show. It's about the fact that everything I like about the books is absent. I am watching different characters. I'm watching different storylines. It's catching the same story beats. They're visiting the same locations. But the joy and the wonder and the surprise and the tone that I feel from the books is completely absent from the TV show. Does that make any sense? So that's my long rant. I will make a video about it eventually. I do want to go back in the chat here and just address comments that you guys have been making since I started talking. Let's see where I was here. It looks like you guys have not been asking about, which is maybe a good thing. So, with that being said, those are my opinions. I am curiously looking forward to seasons 3 and specifically season 4 because book 4 is my favorite book in the series. But that's where I'm sitting with my feelings toward the TV show. So, back to business. Questions in the live chat. Red Neptune says, the Trials of Echo Worm's patience. Yes, that honestly, getting through Trials of Apollo felt like that a lot of times. The first 2 books are really, really slow. Oh, I just heard that you've been accidentally saying 6-7 in some of your books and just decided to try to take advantage of it. Those are the 2 numbers that you spoke of earlier. Yes, they are. Fish are hilarious. Expert Nate says, for some time, I have not been seeing some of your audiobooks on the channel, and I'm wondering what happened to them and where I can find them, especially your Percy Jackson audiobooks. You should still be able to find the Percy Jackson audiobooks if you look up Echo Worm Rick Riordan. There's a specific channel now for the Rick Riordan audiobooks. You should be able to find all of the Percy Jackson books, all of the Trials of Apollo books, Heroes of Olympus, Nico D'Angelo, Kane Chronicles, and Magnus Chase. They all should be on that Echo Worm Rick Riordan channel. Question from Andrea, who says, what is your timeline for the rest of the Maze Runner series? Good question. It has been asked multiple times. Right now we are finishing up Inheritance, which is the final book in the Inheritance Cycle series or the Aragon series. That should take us, at least in Patreon terms, that should take us into March. And then as soon as we get to March, then we will finish the Maze Runner series with the final book in the original trilogy, The Death Cure. And then eventually, of course, we'll do the other 2 books, The Kill Order and The Fever Code. Yes, and Yaffe says, my nephew's been making me insane with, yes, those 2 numbers. Trust me, I have a lot of relatives who are middle schoolers, so I have been feeling it too. We'll get through it. We get through it all the time. That's how memes work. Question from Brooklyn, who asks, can you please do Court of the Dead? Yes, someone asked me that earlier. I have already done Court of the Dead. All 43 or however many chapters should be available on the channel. Angel asking, why are your audiobooks shorter than the ones on Audible? Because they're my own audiobooks. These, if it wasn't obvious, I'm a real person. And I read my own audiobooks. I do not take them from other readers. I read faster than most readers. Gabriel Abshalom asking, are you going to read City of the Plague God? Good question. I'll give the same answer I gave earlier when someone was asking about the Blood of Hercules. Right now, I'm kind of mythologied out. I have read every Rick Riordan book except the side books, and I need a little bit of a break. So City of the Plague God is part of the Rick Riordan Presents series, meaning that he didn't actually write the books. He just kind of put his stamp on it, like Oprah's book club. It's written by another author. It represents a different culture than one that he would probably be comfortable writing about. And for a couple different reasons. The first being, like I said, I'm mythologied out. The other reason being, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to read something like that. In terms of, if there were another audiobook reader who would be interested in reading it, I think they would have more time to do so than I would, and I would also be willing to promote their work on my channel if that's something they'd be interested in doing. Obviously, with Magnus Chase, that was, I understand Norwegian, so it was easy for me to be able to do that. And, Greek and Roman stuff is kind of the broader European spectrum. City of the Plague God is Babylonian mythology, and as someone who has no Iraqi ancestry, I don't know that that's something that I would be able to appropriately bring to an audiobook format. Let's go to a question from Dangster Paws asks, what is your Patreon? My Patreon, it'll flash up on the screen here in a sec. Patreon.com/EchoWorm. Those are all of my top tier Patreon members. And if you'd like to join them, you can join for as little as $5 a month. Gabe says, can you do Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians? It is on my list. It has been requested quite a bit. Nomi Vela says, can you do the Twilight Saga? Yes. So as soon as we are done with the Maze Runner trilogy, I will be doing Twilight. My wife has been asking for it for a very, very long time. I am, I shouldn't say excited. I am counting down the days till I finish Twilight. So, Welcome Within My Dream says, do you know if there's another book after the Wrath of the Triple Goddess being planned? As far as I'm aware, the answer is still yes, and it is expected to come out in September of this year, 2026. Originally, after Wrath of the Triple Goddess came out, it was supposed to come out September of 25. Of course, then they pushed that to release Nico 2, or The Court of the Dead. And so the expectation, which has not necessarily been officially announced, is that September of 26 we will get the final Percy Jackson book, Percy Jackson 8, which does not have a title yet. And then September or so of 2027, we will get Nico 3, which will probably be the final Nico book, unless they decide to continue it. We'll see what happens. That's a fun noise. I hope that goes away soon. Let me fix that real quick, sorry. I have a bubbler on top of my tank that vibrates sometimes, and if it vibrates too much, it gets close to the edge, and then it starts rattling the whole tank. Expert Nate says, have you ever thought of reading a girl's book like the Princess Diaries series sometimes? Sometimes it's not bad, but to expand your interest. I mean, I'm a guy, and I think the Princess Diaries is really cool. Don't let the name fool you. It has a very different feel. Obviously, I'm familiar with the films they made with Anne Hathaway in the early 2000s. In terms of like girl books, I have read a few on the channel. The obvious ones that I'm thinking of, I mean, to me, Divergent is more of a female series, but I don't think you'd consider that a girl book. There's one that I read. I did read a romance novel on Patreon. It's called, it's Jennifer Armentrout, and I can't remember the name of it. But I have read some romance books. They're available over on Patreon if you haven't checked them out yet. I'd be willing to. it has not been requested heavily on the channel, aside from, like the really questionable ones that I probably won't read on the channel, such as 50 Shades of Grey and The Court of Thorns and Roses. So, yes, in terms of like adolescent teenage girl books, if there's like an audience for it, I'd be more than happy to do so, but I have not seen that on the channel yet. Skybeats says, how long do you reckon until the Scorch Trials is finished? I believe Scorch Trials finishes within the next few days. If you look up Echo Worm Maze Runner, you should be able to find our Scorch Trials readings. And then, like I said, Death Cure should be coming after we're done with Inheritance. Jamboree asks, if you sub to the $5 plan on Patreon, do you get access to all the books? Yes, $5 is the kind of minimum entry for the early access to stuff. Anything above that doesn't get you necessarily more audiobooks. It just gets you different content. So like if you go up a tier, then you get downloadable versions. If you go up a tier from that, then you get your name on this credits sheet that I just pointed out. And then if you keep going all the way to the top, then you get a free book every month. Aster, Daughter of Hades says, how many audiobooks have you read and recorded? I actually am going to give you the official number. Give me one sec here. If I go to my Patreon archives and I look into my dashboard and my collections, I will be able to tell you. I have done the first 3 Inheritance Cycle books. I have done 1 full original book. I have done 28 Rick Riordan Camp Half-Blood books, which I believe puts us at 32. I have done 16 Harry Potter audiobooks, which I believe parts 1 and 2, if you combine those, that puts us at about just shy of 50 audiobooks. The Spiderwick Chronicles brings us over 50. The Kane Chronicles brings us to about 55. Chronicles of Narnia puts us at about 62. Star Wars brings us past 67. I've done 2 Sherlock Holmes audiobooks, which puts us at about 70. The Missing series, 71. Goosebumps, 72. Books of Ember, I've done 1 of those. That's 73. The Shadow Children brings us to about 80 audiobooks. I've done 3 young adult singles books, so 83, 2 foul books, 85, 2 horror books, so 87, The Hunger Games 5, which is 92, that romance novel I mentioned, which is 93, Fablehaven, I've done 2 of them, which brings us to 95, I've done 2 of the Giver books, which is 97, I have done 1 book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, which I think we're at 98 now. A Series of Unfortunate Events puts us over 101. 2 Maze Runner books puts us at 103. I've done 8 Diary of Wimpy Kid books, which brings us to 111. Keeper of the Lost Cities, 112. Magnus Chase series, which brings us to 115. Right? And then 3 Divergent books, 118, and then 3 Dune books. So with those, we're upwards of 120. And then I've also done about 40 Magic Treehouse books, which are available on Vimeo. And then I've also done about 10 A to Z Mysteries books. So I think the number is close to about 170 or 180. And I do apologize. There we go. There's my screen. Yeah. So I think I'm at about 180 audiobooks with chapters. And then, of course, I've got my Bible readings. So depending on how you divide books of the Bible, I've got maybe 50 out of 66 done. So I've done quite a bit. I've been doing this for about 3 years now. Aster, Daughter of Hades says, do you plan on writing any more books? Yes. So I mentioned I have a finished book on the channel called The Radiation Effect. I'm currently 10 chapters through the sequel, which will eventually be a 7-book series. So I'm working on the sequel to that. And then I am also working on a separate series, which is towards more of like a Percy Jackson audience. It's called Eric Schwabington. I've got 8 chapters of that available. That will be a series that at the moment doesn't have a definable number. But those books will be about 200 pages long. And then there's a couple more series that I have been formulating. So if I were to write everything that I have planned in my head before I die, which hopefully isn't anytime soon, my kind of repertoire or bibliography would probably look to be about 40 books. But about half of those would be those little Eric Schwabington chapter books that I mentioned. Expert Nate says, what about spy books like Alex Rider or another book like the Artemis Fowl series? Or a book with more of a dark feel like the Power of Five series by Anthony Horowitz? Anthony Horowitz is on my list to read. I am very familiar with the Alex Rider series. I have not started reading it yet. But yes, it has been requested. Sasha Newell asking, will you be doing any more of the Lux series anytime? That's that romance novel that I mentioned. Yes, I am through like the first 3 chapters of the follow-up. I don't know if it'll come anytime soon, but yes. Oh, that was quick. Maybe there is a definable number. If someone could tell me that, that'd be awesome. Welcome Within My Dreams says, if you go to About Creator, you see the number of spots there. Yeah. You would probably be able to find an exact number of the books that I have on Patreon. And then, like I said, add about 50 to that based on the Magic Treehouse and A to Z Mysteries books that I've done. Uncle Tatum asking a question that is asked all the time on these streams, and I'm happy to answer it. What is the worst book that you've ever read? Am I going to go to my default answer? I think I'm going to go to my default answer. The worst book that I have ever read. Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I hated high school English, which is really funny because I think if I took it now, I would really enjoy it. I have matured a lot. And my ability to understand literature in a way that's not just, oh, I have to read this, therefore I hate it, is a lot different than it used to be. Now I could definitively tell you why I hate something like that. Almond114 says, could you add Michael Vey and the Land of Stories books to your list? Yes, I believe they are on there. That sounds very familiar, so I believe the answer is yes. Oh, good question. Aside from the stuff you're working on the channel, what kind of media have you been consuming lately? Good question. So I've mentioned this before. I have a list of like 50 movies and TV shows that I kind of recycle or rewatch, or if I haven't watched yet, I add them to my list kind of thing. It's probably about a 10-year list. And so right now we're kind of in an interesting season in terms of some of the series that are on that list that I've seen all of it just came out with new seasons. So for example, Stranger Things. I just got finished watching season 5 of Stranger Things. I've been watching Percy Jackson, the new series. But I just finished Pluribus, which was very good. It's the same team that did Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but it's a sci-fi show. And I don't want to spoil anything about it, but if you're into sci-fi and you're also into kind of slower paced character studies like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, definitely check it out. It's on Apple TV. It will probably win a bunch of Emmys next year, but that's called Pluribus. I just finished that series, and now I'm watching Star Wars again for the first time in about 6 or 7 years, and I'm watching it chronologically. So I started with The Acolyte, and then I did like Tales of the Jedi, and then Phantom Menace, and then some more Tales of the Jedi, and then Attack of the Clones, and now I'm doing Clone Wars. I'm going through all of Star Wars in chronological order, and I'm going to make a big video once I'm done with it. So look forward to that on my other channel. Let's see here. Aster, Daughter of Hades, says, what was the best book, or what was the book you thought you did the best voice acting in? That's a really good question. There are a few that stand out that I can think of. Half-Blood Prince, the sixth Harry Potter book, I thought was probably one of my best recordings. I enjoyed doing the Spiderwick Chronicles a lot. I haven't listened to them in a long time, so I couldn't tell you if my voice acting was as good as I wanted it to be. Skellig, I thought I did a decent job. Most fun and best objective quality, I think, are different answers. But I think Goblet of Fire and Half-Blood Prince were probably the two that I remember feeling like, oh, this was fun, and I feel like I did a good job with this. Good question. Expert Nate says, can you recommend any action books with a heavy, adventurous mood? Action and adventure. If you guys are Star Wars fans, you might be familiar with the movie Jumper. It was basically Hayden Christensen's only big film after Star Wars. It's based on a book, and I, for the life of me, can't remember who the author is. Gould is the last name. Gould is the last name of the author. That would be one that pops in my head. The 100 isn't really an action adventure, but it kind of fits those tones. Otherwise, yeah, that's a really good question, because that's not really a type of book that I read a lot, aside from, like, the Percy Jackson books. Maybe Aragon. Like, parts of Aragon are very action heavy and very adventure heavy. But there's a lot of character stuff in the middle, and it gets really slow in the middle. So if that's not something you like, then maybe not for you. But those would be the ones that pop into my head. Orkar asks, why do you pronounce Vaguely the way you do? Because I have a pretty heavy border accent, and if I'm not careful, when I say it, it sounds like another word that I shouldn't say on camera. And so I'm overly cautious, and it pops my accent in a weird way. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by my fish. That blue tang is seriously one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Just plays dead on the ground. There she goes. I don't know if you can see her. She's really pretty, though. I use pronouns for my fish indefinably. I have no idea which is male and which is female. Aster, Daughter of Hades, says, what books did you grow up on, or were your favorite books to read that you still reread today? I think the channel is the obvious answer. So the books that I've mainly covered on the channel and have used to get big. So the two that stand out are Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. I remember when the sixth Harry Potter book came out, I actually still, on my old bedroom door at my dad's house, have... they used to do, like, movies have release posters. They used to do that for books. They might still. They're just not nearly as common as they used to be. But I still have the Half-Blood Prince release poster for the book on my bedroom door at my dad's house. And so when that came out, I think I had just turned like 6 years old, and that's when I started reading Harry Potter. And I read Harry Potter religiously until I was probably in middle school. And right before middle school, I had kind of read my way through the Harry Potter series multiple times. That's when a friend of mine at the time got me into Percy Jackson. And so Percy Jackson, I think, had just come out. No, it was right before the fifth book had come out. So I read through the first four, and then I remember when Last Olympian came out. And then I remember when it was kind of Rick Riordan's explosion, because the film had just come out, and then The Lost Hero and Kane Chronicles both came out the following year. And so it was a huge year for Rick Riordan. And so I probably read those as religiously as Harry Potter through middle school. And then once I got to high school, my love of reading kind of died out, and I got into other things. But I would say those two were the ones that really stood out to me. I was also a huge Star Wars fan growing up, and so all of, like, what are now considered the Legends books, I read a lot of those when I was little. And then Hunger Games didn't really get big until I was toward the end of middle school. And so, like, Hunger Games and Divergent I read, but I wouldn't say that I was super into them because of how old I was when they came out, if that makes any sense. Astro Daughter of Hades says, who is your favorite book character out of all of the books you read? Favorite book character ever? Oh, good question. Coriolanus Snow sticks out. I really, really like Snow, the president from the Hunger Games. Other ones that really stand out to me. I really do like Dumbledore, and I really like Voldemort. Greg Heffley is an anomaly. I really do enjoy Greg Heffley. Those are ones that stand out. Not that there aren't better books out there, but in terms of like characters that I really connect with and have enjoyed, those are the ones that stand out to me. Flick Street YouTube is in the chat saying, hey there, hey there. I have maybe about 20 more minutes of streaming that I am able to do today. So if you guys want to keep asking questions in the chat, I'm happy to stay for maybe 20, 25 more minutes if we can push it. But yeah, feel free to keep asking questions in the chat. I do want to swing my shoulder around. Like I said, I just got this blue tang and I'm obsessed with the antics going on in the tank behind me. I'll send a picture in the Discord chat later because I think you guys deserve to see what's going on in my fish tank that we've been talking about for months. Eventually, I'd like to upgrade to a 55. That's a 30 right now. And it's a little small for a blue tang, but she should be able to get by with the size that she is until about next summer. Flaster YouTube says, did you see my post on Discord about the Titan's Curse casting for Dr. Thorne, Professor Chase, and Atlas? Did you look up their actors? I looked up their actors, but I'm not familiar with any of the projects that they've been in. So, yes, I'm familiar with the casting, but I'm not familiar with the actors as much. My guess is with the direction of the TV show and the just kind of the tone that all of the castings have had so far, I think they'll probably fit those pretty well. Astro Daughter of Hades says, what kinds of fish do you have? Good question. I currently have 8 individuals in the tank behind me. I think the most I'd be comfortable having in that tank at the size is 10. I have a cleaner shrimp named Charles II, named so because we had a Charles and he died and now he's the second. So a cleaner shrimp, and then we have a blue tang that I keep mentioning. Her name is Doris. I have a pair of clownfish named Jules and Jacques. They are very, very fun. They're long fin clownfish, so when they're fully grown, they'll have really long fins like a betta fish. I also have 2 mollies. Mollies are typically freshwater fish, but because they can live in both fresh and salt water, you can acclimate them. So they are in the saltwater tank at the moment, doing very well. And then I also have a yellow clown goby that my son named Pharisee because my son is an interesting child. And then we just got last week a green chromis, which we named Moses because if you're familiar with chromises, they come from the Red Sea. And of course, when you think of Red Sea, if you're a Bible reader, that is one of Moses' most famous acts, is parting that sea. So yes, those are the individuals that we have. The 2 that I would still like to get eventually are, they call it a royal grandma. It's the fish that, from Finding Nemo, it's half purple and half yellow. And then the other one is called a Bongai cardinal fish. They're this big, almost angelfish looking thing. They're white and black and they have spines for fins instead of like big flowing things. So sorry to nerd out on fish for you, but that's been my obsession lately. I mentioned earlier in the stream I might end up doing fish videos on a separate channel. Xavier Holder says, are full versions ever coming back to YouTube? At the moment, probably not, given the limitations that I have on uploading. I am currently only able to upload around about, depending on the channel, I'm only able to upload about 15 minutes per video. And so it really depends on the series and what I'm able to upload. Probably not on this channel. I'm trying to keep this channel safe from any copyright restrictions. So anything on this channel is either something that I personally own the copyright to, or it's public domain. And so that's why you'll see a lot of Bible readings, you'll see a lot of my own original content, and you'll also see stuff that is about 100 years old that outdates any possible copyright, such as Sherlock Holmes, The Odyssey, those sorts of things. Flick Street YouTube says, for more information, Jesse L. Martin is Iris's father in The Flash with Grant Gustin. Maybe you've seen it. I have not seen The Flash, so I'm familiar with it, but I have not seen it enough to know any of the side actors. It is on my list to watch all of the Arrowverse. Alyssa says, will you finish the A Song of Ice and Fire books? Yes, I'm almost done with Fire and Blood, which is the prequel history book that has been turned into House of the Dragon. I'm hoping to have that done ahead of Season 3 of House of the Dragon, which is supposed to come out, I think, this summer. And then I'm also working on A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is a series of short stories that is being adapted into the TV show of the same name, coming out sometime at the end of this month, I believe. Red Neptune asks, what type of questions do you wish people asked? I don't know that I care that much. Biggest thing that I like doing on these live streams is having fluid and active conversations. So if there's stuff that you guys enjoy chatting about and wanting to talk about, I am always happy to answer those questions. I do really get a kick out of people asking me questions about my own content. So in terms of like the Radiation Effect and Eric Schwabington, I get really excited when people want to know more about those series. So happy to answer questions like that, but otherwise I really don't have a preference. Aster, Daughter of Hades, said, if you made fish videos, what would the channel name be? And where can I find the full audiobooks of the Percy Jackson series and Heroes of Olympus? I don't have an answer to the first question yet, which is weird because I usually plan things out very, very far in advance. I had the name of Echo Wirm down like 2 years before I ever started the channel. I will let you guys know as soon as possible if that ever becomes a thing. I don't know that I would be able to make enough content to support a full channel if I were to make a new one, but I will let you know if it does happen. In terms of the second part of the question, where can I find the full audiobooks of the Percy Jackson series? You can find them on Patreon and Vimeo. They're available in the description below. There are links to both. They are available for free. Echo Fish? That's kind of funny. I think I'd stick with the worm motif, though. So, I don't know, something stupid like water worm. Flick Street YouTube says, still loving Eric Schwabington, especially the funny chapter names. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Hopefully next episode coming, or next chapter coming out next week. It's a big one, because obviously the end of the last chapter, he met his brother. And there are more lore drops with the next chapter. I've been working very heavily on the Radiation Effect at the moment. So Eric Schwabington is keeping me sane, and the Radiation Effect continues to reward me for how complex it is. So stay tuned for both. And yes, the funny chapter names, that was something I was like committed to doing because I wanted to take that from Percy Jackson. Something I love about Percy Jackson that I think was missing in some of the later series. Oh good, she's moving around. That's a good sign. Not that playing dead is a bad sign. It's normal for blue tangs. Fish tangent. I should have a button every time I talk about fish that plays a little jingle. But blue tangs are notorious for like playing dead. But it also can be a sign of stress. So the fact that she's moving around is actually a really good sign. Because like I said, I literally put her in the tank 5 minutes before we started the stream. Let's see here. What are your general thoughts on Magnus Chase overall? I would highly recommend you go back to the start of the stream. I gave a lot of thoughts about my disappointment in terms of the way they adapted Norse mythology. And actually, that's incorrect. I thought Rick Riordan adapted Norse mythology for his style very well. My issues come from what I felt was a lack of respect to Nordic culture coming from a Norwegian American. And I went in, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back to the start of the live stream. I went on about a 5-minute rant about the way that he doesn't understand the language at all. And it feels like didn't really care to study the language and phoned it in for the sake of making a Norse mythology series. But in terms of like the series as a whole, I enjoyed the series more than I enjoyed Trials of Apollo. I would say of like, I'm going to exclude the Nico series because there's only 2 books and I don't quite feel like it's a series yet. In terms of his 5 main series, I think Magnus Chase is probably 4th out of 5. I thought there were a lot of good elements. I really liked the characters a lot better than the way they were written in Trials of Apollo. But it wasn't just a lack of respect for Norse mythology. It just, like, I had some, the way that he addressed Islam too. I thought there were some really, really weird choices in the books. I have no idea if it was he was trying not to offend people, and so he approached things a different way, but at the same, the way it was written for the sake of certain cultures was really poor, in my opinion, and I didn't enjoy it. And I was really confused by it. Like I said, I liked the characters. I wasn't that impressed with the plot, and I didn't like the pacing. But in terms of like the overall character arcs, I thought were fine. My son just woke up from a nap. Sorry about that. There were some weird choices with plot and pacing, but I think like the characters are likable and enjoyable. Earthworm Jim. There's a choice. Aster, Daughter of Hades, asks, can you explain more about the superpowers in the radiation effect? Yes, I would be happy to, if you want to expand on that question. What do you mean by more about the superpowers in the radiation effect? Because there are a bunch of different ones, and I'm happy to elaborate on what each character is able to do and where that stems from. Flick Street YouTube says, which Magnus Chase book is your favorite and which is your least favorite? Good question. It's tough because the second book had a lot of really high highs, but I also felt like there were a lot of really disappointing parts of book 2. So I'm tempted to say book 2 was my favorite, but at the same time, there was a lot I didn't like about it. Does that make any sense? So I think like if I weighed it out, book 1 would probably be my favorite. I think 3 would probably be my least, but I don't really have a specific reason why. I just didn't think it hit the highs of the other 2, if that makes any sense. Red Neptune asks, what is your ultimate dream, writer or author? Yeah, a good question. In terms of as an author, the dream that I have at the moment is just, I would love to create a series that people latch onto in a way that, you know, I don't need it to become the next Harry Potter. It'd be great to. I think, you know, not to make myself money, but the things that I would be able to do for, you know, my community with money that would come from something like that would be great. And in a perfect world, if I'm looking at that direction, I would want to create a series that is well liked by its fan base, well respected, not necessarily as a literary masterpiece, but is not one of those that people can poke holes at and say this is terribly written. I would want it to have a solid fan base and still be able to be seen as not a genius work of art, but well written and well thought out and well constructed. You know, I've said before, I would totally be fine with a really, really bad Netflix adaptation, so long as it pointed people back to the source material and brought people into a new love for the material. I'm really passionate about the stuff that I write about, and I'm really proud of it. And my biggest joy as an author, and what I've seen so far on Discord and on YouTube, is people connecting with these stories and theorizing about them. Like leaving enough bread trails that people are starting to piece together the puzzle before I lay it out, if that makes any sense. And wanting to teach and to grow intelligently with my audience, and have kind of that dedicated fan base that even if I maybe disappoint the diehards, I'm consistent with where I started, if that makes any sense. I think that would be my dream. So I don't know, do a couple Comic-Con panels, be able to sign some books, maybe take pictures with people at an airport. I think that would be the dream, but I don't necessarily need to be famous. Flick Street YouTube says, I feel like Uncle Randolph grabs the idiot ball in Book 2 of Magnus Chase by serving Loki, even though the trickster god would obviously disregard his promise to him to bring back his family. Yeah, I agree. I thought the Uncle Randolph stuff was really... the ending of book 2 was very disappointing for me. And I think that's where a lot of my trouble with it lies. Vlixam says, what are your thoughts on the new season of Percy Jackson? I went into about a 20-minute rant earlier on in the live stream. I would highly recommend you go back and listen to it. I'm not going to repeat myself because I do have a lot of thoughts on it, and I already talked about them earlier. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. I'll answer maybe 1 or 2 more questions if you guys have them, and maybe stick around a little longer. Otherwise, feel free to join the Discord server if you haven't already. It is never as busy as I want it to be, and I love to continue these conversations over there in all of the different, we have different channels for all the different fandoms that we talk about on the channel. If you haven't done so yet, feel free to join. It's completely free, and yeah, I'd love to continue these conversations. I am going to butcher pronouncing how you want me to pronounce that. So the question is, what is the Song of Ice and Fire schedule looking like? I mentioned a few minutes ago, my goal is to have Fire and Blood done before House of the Dragon season 3 comes out later on this spring/summer. In terms of Clash of Kings, I don't know. I'm getting to each chapter as much as I can, but I also have a lot of other projects going on, and I'm also very, very busy at the moment. I've mentioned before, I do have a full-time job outside of YouTube. I do not rely on the income that I make on Patreon to sustain me, but I also am working on 2 novels. I am also going to be a father to a second kid very soon, so I am in a very busy season of life and doing as much as I can to get you guys the content that you guys want in the time that I have. So I do appreciate your patience. With that being said, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for joining. Like I said, if you haven't already, join the Discord server. Please continue these conversations over there. And even if nobody responds to you for like a day, that's normal. That is how things happen. But please join if you want to talk about the radiation effect or Eric Schwabington. Tonight, my goal is to set up a dedicated Eric Schwabington server over on the Discord server, or Eric Schwabington channel on the Discord server, so we can talk about that specifically in its own thing. But plenty of other content coming up on the channel. If you haven't checked out Patreon or Vimeo, they're both completely free with all of the stuff that has been out on the channel previously, and it will be for all the stuff coming out very, very soon. With that being said, thank you very much, and I will hope to see you guys very, very soon.